Welcome to 70 Years of 7, a celebration of 7 decades of moments and memories.
It was 70 years ago today that WXYZ first signed on air with a pledge to serve Detroit viewers and a vision to make a difference in our communities.
We're going to take you through 7 decades of excellence as we celebrate the events that make all of us as Detroiters proud.
It was 1948. The war to end all wars was over. American GIs were coming home and building was booming across Metro Detroit. It was a time of growth, opportunity, and optimism. As cities sprawled, cars were becoming an essential part of everyday life, and the entertainment was movies and radio. The Green Hornet and the Lone Ranger on WXYZ Radio had the ear of Detroit and the nation.
Fiery horse with the speed of light, a cloud of dust, and a hearty hi-yo silver, the Lone Ranger.
In 1948, the American Broadcasting Company used its radio technology to launch something brand new. On October 9th, the first flicker of images from WXYZ-TV were broadcast live from the Maccabees building in downtown Detroit.
This is television station WXYZ, the American Broadcasting Company, serving Detroit, Michigan.
The schedule that day included a college football game between Michigan State University and the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame. And later in the day, opening ceremonies at the Detroit Institute of the Arts.
In the 1950s, TV was taking off. WXYZ launched what would become the first television talk show in the country, The Pat and Johnny Show. Other programs were developed to capture the interest of new television viewers. Shows like Rita Bell's Prize Movie, House of Charm, a style, fashion, and cooking show with Edith Fern Melrose, and traveler George Perot's World Adventure Series.
So let's go back to the action now. The climax of the 1953 season.
Before long, sports became part of the lineup. Live coverage of the Detroit Lions, Gold Cup racing on the Detroit River, and auto racing from Detroit's Motor City Speedway. By 1959, WXYZ had outgrown its studio in the Maccabees building and moved to a new home in Southfield.
This building had all of the latest technology that you could possibly get. This station was making a big commitment to enlarge and expand and to do more local programming, all of which was good for its viewers.
A new decade was on the horizon.
It was the 60s, and a new sound born on the streets of Detroit was sweeping the country.
The only person talking about love now, brother, is a preacher.
The Motown sound was making its way to television. And kids shows joined the lineup. Shows like Wixie Wonderland, The Auntie D Show, and The Johnny Ginger Show. But the real star was comedian Soupy Sales. Every kid in Detroit was having lunch with Soupy.
I want to say a great big hello now to all the kids all over the United States. And my name is Soupy Sales.
Soupy's pie-in-the-face fun would make its way to ABC's primetime schedule with some big-name entertainers.
Now, wait a minute. I was trying to take good care of you. You wait just a moment.
Back at WXYZ, a fledgling news operation was taking shape. At the Walk to Freedom March at Cobo Hall in 1963, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. would preview his I Have a Dream speech, and WXYZ reporters like Bill Bonds were providing information and insight to the news of the day.
Dr. King, would you think about this just a moment before you answer it? Do you think that murders or deaths like Mrs. Liuso are necessary to sustain the civil rights movement?
I think if you see the Circle 7 and you have lived in Detroit for any length of time at all, that almost represents Bill Bonds. There's never been anybody like him, and there never will be again. He was us. Every Detroiter, whether you loved him or hated him, Billy was us.
In July of 1967, a small but dedicated group of WXYZ reporters would come of age during 4 days of civil unrest that would change the face of Detroit for years to come.
On July 23rd, 1967, Detroit was hit by a riot. We said it couldn't happen, but it did.
I think this is what changed news, was that ability to suddenly go to the scene of a developing story and broadcast from there. You had a reporter standing there saying, right behind me, you see the burning building. That changed everything.
Don't go away. When we come back, we'll have more from 70 years of 7.
For 7 decades, Detroit has seen change, but change defines and connects us.
Alexa, show me the news.
Thanks for joining us.
Our commitment to strengthening your community is at the core of who we are. At WXYZ Channel 7, focusing on tomorrow is what drives us. Like you, we believe in one Detroit, embracing ideas.
Here's your flash briefing.
Innovation and the future.
Here are your headlines.
That will shape and improve your life. Here's to 70 years of 7.
Welcome back to 70 Years of 7 as we continue to celebrate 7 decades on Channel 7. In the 1970s, big news stories filled the small screen. The gas crisis hit Detroit hard in 1973. Coleman Young was elected mayor of Detroit in 1974. Labor union leader Jimmy Hoffa disappeared from a Detroit area restaurant in 1975. The tallest hotel tower in the world opened in Detroit's new Renaissance Center. It was 1976.
All of a sudden, there was an interest in revitalization of Detroit. This was a bringing together of the leadership, the business leadership of Detroit. And we're going to do this, and we're going to put a symbol on that waterfront that says we're back. And that's what that building is, and it remains that today.
Channel 7 was busy recruiting anchors from other stations to join the fold. In the end, WXYZ had Detroit's favorite news team and one of the most successful news teams in the country.
Bonds, Kelly, Ackerman, Turner, Channel 7's Action News Team. We got who you wanted.
You know, a while back, some people were saying things like, well, the last person to leave Detroit, please turn out the lights. Well, the lights didn't go out. We surprised a lot of people, didn't we? Channel 7's very proud to be part of this Detroit comeback story. It's that kind of a town. But to keep the comeback and the dream alive is going to take a whole lot of work. You can be sure of one thing, though. When news is made in Detroit, our lights are going to be on. Channel 7 stands up for Detroit.
In the 1980s, a recession battered the auto industry, and Detroit was taking a beating of its own in the national media. So WXYZ found a way to make Detroit proud.
You've got the spirit, tell them you're from Detroit. Come on, let's hear it, tell them you're from Detroit. We're a team that's hometown.
We cared. They saw us caring in the community, and they embraced that. What we had going was something so magical that it will always make Channel 7 a very special place in the community because it was only happening here.
The first spark of change began downtown. Mike Ilitch was betting on Detroit's future and developing the city's new entertainment district. At WXYZ, the show Kelly and Company, featuring husband and wife team John Kelly and Marilyn Turner, was becoming one of the most popular shows on Detroit television.
It's Detroit's only live morning talk show, the award-winning Kelly and Company.
In 1986, WXYZ would become a part of EW Scripps, a media company dedicated to providing news and entertainment to a growing audience of consumers. Scripps would add Detroit's WMYD to the family in 2014, creating even more opportunities to expand news coverage and better serve Detroit area viewers. And in 1987, Pope John Paul II paid a historic visit to Detroit.
I was able to actually get into the church, and he touched my hand, and it was just a very, very special moment. And I was able to bring that experience then to the viewers through my live report.
Throughout the 1990s, WXYZ was there with coverage of the moments that touched us all.
In June of 1990, 3 months after being released from a South African prison, Nelson Mandela made a historic visit to Detroit.
We are going to free South Africa so that all people, black and white, live in harmony and peace.
Bill and I were on the air 24 hours from the time Nelson Mandela's plane touched down in Detroit until he departed the very next day. We had live television like you have never seen live television before.
The beloved Hudson's department store was demolished. And the Tigers would play their final game at the corner of Michigan and Trumbull.
There she goes, and it is on the roof. Robert Vick, a grand slam that hits the roof and comes back.
We are overlooking the brand new Campus Martius Park. This is the new gathering place for Metro Detroit, and it is going to be the cornerstone for development here in downtown Detroit.
With the start of the new century, the rebirth of downtown began to take shape. Campus Martius Park gave Detroit a new gathering place, and a federal bailout would put the automakers back in the driver's seat.
This decade has been filled with hope and optimism for Detroit and for WXYZ.
In 2010, Dan Gilbert moved employees downtown and started a renaissance in real estate that continues today. In 2015, WXYZ made history with the opening of a street-side studio in downtown Detroit.
Adding the downtown studio in Detroit was a great opportunity for us to connect with the city and be part of the resurgence that's going on in Detroit. We do our new news there every day. It's also a great opportunity for us to talk to the community leaders that live there, the business leaders that are leading this change.
Detroit would emerge from bankruptcy, and WXYZ would be there as the rebirth began to take shape. Earlier this year, Ford announced a major move. It was purchasing the old Central train station and creating a mobility hub in the heart of Midtown.
Now, Detroit, this is a historic day in a historic place at a historic time in history.
Don't go away. When we come back, we'll look at some of our favorite moments in sports from the past 7 decades. Stay with us.
Welcome back to 70 Years of 7. Sports have a unique way of uniting us. In this town, that means uniting through the heartbreak, coming together through the frustrations. But it also means celebrating as a city all of the success. And there's been a lot of success to celebrate. We've been there through the parades, and on 7, throughout all of the moments and all of the memories, we've been there to capture and bring you a lifetime of moments.
The Detroit Red Wings, one of the original 6 teams in the National Hockey League. They brought Detroit plenty to celebrate for much of the 1950s. They were the team to beat. The production line, Mr. Hockey, Gordie Howe, Sid Abel, and Ted Lindsay, won the Stanley Cup in 1950, 52, 54, and 55. The 50s were a great time for the Lions. Behind Bobby Lane, Detroit was dominant. They won NFL championships in 1952, 53, and 57. Then, well, more on that in a minute. Sports can do wonders for a community. The 67 riots are a pivotal part of Detroit's history. Baseball wrote the city's next chapter. The 68 Tigers would provide the healing the city of Detroit so desperately needed.
And the city of Detroit is one big happy clubhouse.
The Tigers clinched the American League pennant, rallying in the 9th to beat the Yankees. The Tigers were again on top of the baseball world, winning the World Series in 1984. The Bless You Boys crew featured Kirk Gibson, Jack Morris, Alan Trammell, and Lou Whitaker. The late 80s ushered in an era of bad being good. Isaiah Thomas and the rest of the Detroit Pistons' bad boys delivered back-to-back championships in 1989 and 1990. Don Shane took you inside that locker room.
Let me hold it, baby.
Hold the baby.
Detroit, I promised you I would get you one. I made good on my promise. Enjoy.
In 1997, champagne popped again in Detroit, and after a long wait. 42 years passed from the last Red Wings Stanley Cup win, And behind Captain Steve Yzerman, a roster of Hall of Fame talent, and a Hall of Fame coach in Scotty Bowman, the Wings captured the Cup in '97, in '98, and in 2002. After Yzerman retired, Nick Lidstrom wore the C, lifting Lord Stanley over his head in 2008. If sports unite us, and they do, in this state, they also have the power to divide us so much that they still bring us together. Michigan, Michigan State. Magic Johnson in 1979, one of the all-time greats in basketball's history, drove the Spartans to the national title. Glenn Rice in 1989 built an unforgettable run to the top with U of M. The Fab Five followed with a layered legacy. Tom Izzo is in the Basketball Hall of Fame for good reason. 7 trips to the Final Four and an emotional, triumphant championship in 2000. The Spartans won 4 Rose Bowl games, most recently in 2014.
Pretty darn sweet, huh? Oh, yeah. This is amazing. This is an amazing feeling. So proud of the team and all that we were able to accomplish this year. This means so much.
Bo Schembechler ushered in an era of success in Ann Arbor that paved the way for Lloyd Carr's 1997 team. Charles Woodson steered the ship and won the Heisman all the way to becoming national champions. It was the first for the Wolverines since 1947 and 48. Barry Sanders was a wonder in the 90s. His moves, his 2,000-yard season, his Hall of Fame talent. All of it a part of the marvel we all watched. But those moments, and moments Kelvin Johnson added a decade later, ended the same way, with a great player walking away from the game. We were there to cover it all, bringing you closer to the team and to the moments we love, and sometimes dread to remember.
Don Shane always told us in our sports department, we have the one thing Detroit fans always want, and that's the credential around the neck. To go into the locker room, to talk with the coaches, the players, and to be in those moments as close as possible. He made us all promise that we should take that access and bring it to the people that want it the most. It's what we've done for the past 70 years, and that's what we promise to do for the next 70. Coming up, we take a look at the future in the next 70 years of 7.
Welcome back to 70 Years of 7.
As it has for 70 years, WXYZ continues to serve Metro Detroit.
Reaching out to those in need.
And being part of events that touch neighborhoods throughout our community.
Thank you for joining me today.
We are dedicated to celebrating the excellence that will define our future, with events like the Scripps Wayne County Spelling Bee and Brightest and Best. For the past 3 decades, WXYZ has celebrated the academic achievement of top graduating seniors from high schools across Metro Detroit. We're listening to the concerns of the people we serve.
Are we looking at other regions to see what they're doing with mass transit?
We need it, and we need it now.
And through our decade-long Detroit 2020 effort,
tear that house down.
We are working to make Detroit a better place to work, to live.
The neighbor across the street is thrilled.
And to raise families. We're committed to telling the stories that will help move our region forward. We've been there to share the events that celebrate our community and capture the pride of being a Detroiter. From the Auto Show Red Carpet Charity Preview and Channel 7 Family Day to the Detroit Grand Prix and Monday Night Football.
Campus Martius is just breathtaking. WXYZ is proud to be the official television station of community events.
2, 1!
Like the holiday tree lighting at Campus Martius Park. And the Woodward Dream Cruise, an event we share with stations across the country. Woodward Avenue is lit up to celebrate Detroit's passion for classic cars.
Feel the nostalgia out here.
And we are dedicated to bringing you the very latest news and information on all platforms, on air, online, on mobile, and on the devices we've come to depend on.
Here's your flash briefing from WXYZ-7 Action News in Detroit.
We continue to evolve as a media organization, creating great content, telling great stories on multiple platforms for our consumers when they need it and want it.
There really is a family feel here to the staff, and I think the viewer at home is able to detect that as well. People stayed here for many, many years, decades. It's that background, that understanding of the city and its people that then is transmitted through our broadcasts and makes people realize that we've lived here too, and we've been through it, and we understand what it is they're concerned about.
people relate to Channel 7 as part of their family. When you think about generations of families in the Detroit area have been a part of the 70-year anniversary of Channel 7. They've been with us for 70 years or so, generation after generation.
Channel 7 has always had a team, whether it was in front of the camera or behind the camera. There was and remains a commitment here to be the best you can be, to be the best in serving our community with what is important to the community.
WXYZ's greatest asset for the last 70 years, and it remains true today, is our people. Our remarkable men and women that have given back to this community at the highest level. It's made up of passionate journalists that are creating content that connects with this community on any platform they use.
Our pledge is that we'll be here for the next 70 years and beyond.
To celebrate the successes and to help in the tough times.
And to always be on your side.